9 to noon radio from Indianapolis continues. It is the 2019 National Football League Scouting Combine. Paul Charchian, Ben Lieber, yours truly, Paul Allen, all here in Indianapolis. Joined now by Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com and NBC Sports Radio, weekly guest 9 to noon. But it's nice to go chin to chins, eyebrow to eyebrows, with one of our very favorites. Can I get some covenant claps for Michael Florio, please, joining us here on air, on site, on demand, and on fire?
Look, I don't care about the chins. I don't care about the eyebrow. Yeah. I just think, like, if I look at your hair too closely, I'm going to turn to stone.
What's that mean? Like a Medusa? Come on, man. Well,
I don't know what it is you're going for, but whatever it is, it works.
My sources tell me that you did turn to stone this morning, and you couldn't wake up, and you were late for your radio show. And the only reason I bring it up, because this is not the embarrassment covenant. However, one or two times
it's the karma covenant.
I was late to my show because of taking my daughter to school like an hour from the radio station. Boy, you just beat me up on Twitter and my show.
I have no idea.
So how's that feel?
I have no idea what happened last night. I had 2 alarms set on my phone, and the only thing that I can say to make sense of it, when I was in high school, I mastered the art of turning off my alarm and going back to sleep and not realizing it. Right. Apparently, I have mastered the art without realizing it of turning off 2 alarms on my phone, going back to bed, and Stats called me at 5:45 a.m. Eastern, and I missed one segment of my show.
Okay, well, alarm clocks actually is an off-air common thread with this radio show this morning, because Paul Charchian had a problem in his room this morning.
Underrated part of the housekeeping duties of your maid is to turn off the alarm clock from the previous person that was in your room. So I got.
And can you still say maid?
I don't. Can
like
you still
steward? You can't say stewardess. It's flight attendant.
I don't know. Is it
roomkeeper?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I still think maid's okay.
Okay.
If maid's okay, we're going with maid. 5:30 in the morning. The alarm's going off.
The best.
I wish I would have had that room.
Yeah, right. You
I'd
needed my room. You'd have been okay.
And I'm the one over here that didn't get to sleep at all.
Right.
The last time I looked at the clock, it was 4 a.m. And I'm like, I can't sleep.
There you go.
So you weren't out at like Prime 47 or Steak and Shake?
I was out a little bit.
But you were unable to sleep.
I was unable to sleep. I thought I was going to roll into my room and just hit the bed and just pass out. But no, I rolled around.
Michael, what's fresh at the Combine? I mean, you the off-season process with ProFootballTalk.com, second to none. But a lot of things begin to emerge here. I mean, from Kyler Murray being 5'10", the steamrolling here is fantastic. I don't know. As I mentioned to Rick Spielman yesterday, I don't know if the Combine is as much like a work interview for these people or Mardi Gras for those involved in the NFL.
Well, it is like spring break before the spring, because the coaches and the GMs and the scouts are here. They're working all day. They blow off steam at night. I don't know how they get up and function the next day. But it's almost like there's so much between press conferences and interviews. There's so much news to harvest. It's like 10 weeks worth of news crammed into 3 days. And we had 13 interviews that we taped after our show went off the air yesterday. And it's like, how do you get anything out of these guys that they haven't already said?
Yeah.
And so what we tried to do with some of them, like we had a thing with Sean McVay a little while ago, and we heard him over at his press conference, and it's the same stuff that you expect a coach to say, and it's all the answers that you know he's going to. You could write him ahead of time. So we just had fun with him. We just like, let's just have some fun. Let's hang out and let's talk about whatever comes up. And I think you got to do that. And I think they appreciate that, because for them, it really is the drudgery of a car wash, and you just try to find a way to make it different than what they are saying over and over and over again in this setting.
Yes, sir.
So the big news this morning, and I say big news in air quotes because we're making this a big deal, but maybe it's not a big deal. Kyler Murray weighs in, gets his height checked, 5'10", heavier than Russell Wilson, hand size an inch smaller than Russell Wilson, but the fact that he comes in at 5'10" and not 5'9", a lot of people around here saying, like, even though he's not throwing, he's already won the Combine. Like, what's your assessment on that 1 inch difference of what they thought he was going to come in and what he actually was?
And here's what's weird.
Yeah, every inch counts.
Oklahoma tweeted out after the season ended that he was measured before the 2018 football campaign at 5'9" and change. So I don't know what he's done from then to now to crack 5'10", but that's just, that number is a big deal. And also 207. I interviewed him at the Super Bowl, and he was at our facility in Atlanta 2 hours after Russell Wilson was there. And when I saw that his agent said he weighs 205, I was like, if he's 5'10", 205, I'm 6'2", 230, right? And maybe I am, but he just looked like a little kid. I was like, if this was my son, I would say you're not playing in the NFL. You're not big enough.
You're going to get killed.
So I don't know what he's been doing the last 3 weeks. I don't know if it's just like milkshakes, or they carved a brick up into 20 pieces and he swallowed them like this, like a freak show act. But he's 207 and 9 5/8 inch hand, which I think is a big deal.
Russell's hands
Drew
are
Lock's
bigger.
only 9. Drew Lock's only 9 inches.
Yeah.
You can't if you can't grip that ball. We know that Dante Culpepper
exactly.
big giant of a man who had tiny little baby doll hands and dropped the ball all the time.
Mike Florio, PFT.
It did end up making a difference. Culpepper was a grade A fumbler. At the time I was rolling my eyes like, oh, come on.
Don't bring up quarterback fumbles. He'll go down the road of your guy.
What do you mean, my
Kirk
guy?
Cousins.
Oh, I thought you meant Dave Craig, who was an epic quarterback fumbler. But
Mike's a little more negative on our first-year quarterback than I think he should be. But I don't know. Maybe the Helga horns from the heart are resonating.
We had Rick Spielman yesterday, and Rick, tell me what I would need to hear to believe that Kirk Cousins is going to be okay. And he said, it takes some time to get a free agent quarterback to where he needs to be. And obviously the passing of Tony Sperano last year, right before the start of camp, that impacted the offensive line. And you can't have a leaky offensive line with an immobile quarterback. And compared to Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins is an immobile quarterback. My bigger concern is this, and I kind of hope the Vikings have a primetime game early out. He's got to turn the page on this.
Yeah.
Can't win in a big spot. I looked at the schedule last year. In my estimation, there were 8 big games, whether it was late afternoon or evening, 2 and 6 in big games last year. And that's not good enough. The 2 wins were against the Eagles when they were down, the Packers when they were down. The other game, losing at night to the Saints, losing in Seattle. Every other game in a big spot was a loss, and you can't have that. If you want to be a playoff team, you can't go 2 and 6 for the half of the schedule that would constitute the big games. Because the year before, remember, I was very negative about when the Vikings came out of the bye and they had franchise quarterback after franchise quarterback, and there's no way they're going to keep winning these games, and they were beating I can't remember the specific teams now, but it was like the Falcons with Matt Ryan, and they were knocking them off one after another. That's what you need if you're going to be a team that contends into the postseason, and they just couldn't do it this past year.
And that turns into its own thing, right? This thing starts to gain some momentum, and I worry it gets into the head of Kirk Cousins. They can't win the big game.
He has to think about that before every game.
Right.
You know
the
that
players,
he's aware. He's very self-aware, and he's aware that in these moments people don't trust him.
Is he self-aware? I would say based on his Twitter page, he's not.
See, I look at the Twitter bit and I think the other side, that he is that he puts stuff out there to keep people into what he's doing in the offseason.
But they don't
You're talking
react.
about like the Miami
I'm
tweet?
talking about Michael Scott's self-awareness. Like he just doesn't get it, right? And they always say that you either know a Michael Scott, and if you don't know a Michael Scott, you are a Michael Scott. Yeah. But I think that he's kind of a Michael Scott character and that he just doesn't get how people are going to react to the way that he operates.
Florio, PFT.
This draft is a little bit unique in that the teams at the top of the draft don't need quarterbacks by and large. Arizona might at number 1, but they don't have to take one at all. San Francisco doesn't. The Jets don't. Oakland doesn't. Tampa doesn't. Your first 5 or 6 teams don't need a quarterback. I think that could facilitate. You get to 6, and now you do.
Yeah.
I think that could facilitate some trading. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, and I think that what we heard yesterday from Steve Keim, the Cardinals GM, the first time they've broken from this Josh Rosen is our guy routine.
Yeah.
And he said Rosen's our quarterback at least for right now, or something like that.
By the way, you're my guest just for right now. For right now,
exactly.
You're my guest.
Yeah. And you're my Mike Scott because I don't know who he is.
But well, that doesn't surprise me. I saw you tweeted recently you've never watched The Office. Do you have any?
No.
You have no idea what you're missing.
No idea.
Do you have
who
Netflix?
He is.
Do you have Netflix?
I do.
Start watching it. It's free. If you're paying for Netflix, you can watch it for free. Start with season 1, episode 1, and just keep going. There's a point where it starts to stink.
Okay.
But start, and you'll love it for at least a little while.
Thank you, Michael.
As to the possibility of the Cardinals, I think they want to maybe create the impression now they're looking at Kyler Murray because then that maybe gets somebody to say, oh, crap.
Yeah, we can't wait on him.
We better move up to get
right.
him because he's not going to be there at 2 or 3. And I think this is where owners get involved because we had 5 quarterbacks taken in round 1 last year, including Baker Mayfield first overall, and they all passed the eyeball test for now, and Mayfield has transformed the Browns.
Yep.
And then last year, or 2 years before that, 2 years ago, rather. Let me try that again. In 2017, you had people pass on Patrick Mahomes in the first 9 spots. No, I don't think anybody wants to be the team that misses out on the next phenomenon. And if there's a chance Kyler Murray's the next phenomenon, I could see an owner say, I want to get up in position to get him, whatever it takes. Let's go get him. We want him. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. But if we're right, we're fine.
Yes,
and
sir.
I don't want to be the guy that didn't take advantage of what could be the next big thing in the NFL.
Nacho Man.
So then what happens with Rosen? If because it sounds like to me, and I've only been here a few short hours, but it sounds like a lot of people are already saying like this Kyler Murray stuff to going to Arizona it's getting pretty strong, it's getting pretty heavy, and it's getting hard to keep bottled up right now. So then what do you do with Josh Rosen if those rumors are true?
Well, remember, it was 1989. The Cowboys drafted Troy Aikman first overall, and then in the supplemental draft, Jimmy Johnson used a first-round pick on, what is he, Minneapolis, St. Paul native Steve Walsh? Where's he from? Somewhere up there. Because I remember he told somebody from the Vikings at one point he was going to come back, play for the Vikings, and win a Super Bowl. And none of those things have ever happened. No. But anyway, you just trade Rosen. Right, and I think if they're trying to create a ruse here, we were talking about this earlier on the show today, if they're committed to selling this, they start calling other teams and talking about trading Josh Rosen, then that gets out, and then maybe somebody goes, I better trade up and get Kyler Murray if I want Kyler Murray because it looks like the Cardinals are going to take him. The risk there, though, is at some point you undermine Josh Rosen in your locker room. Right? Isn't that going to be a factor when you've got other players looking at Josh Rosen wondering, what the hell?
Yeah.
They're not committed to this guy. Should we be listening to him? Should we be following him? And I think that's the danger of flirting too heavily with Kyler Murray.
Last one. You right up in front of the season at ProFootballTalk.com.
You're doing sign language. What does all this stuff mean?
Break time. You do that suite. Who didn't make the playoffs the previous year that's going to jump up and make it this year? I bet you the Minnesota Vikings are part of that mix.
Well, yeah, because they didn't make it last year.
It'll be an en vogue team.
You're right. They're one of the 20 teams that possibly will be that didn't make the playoffs
but
last year.
But it's going to be an
en
en vogue team.
Well, but you know what? Look at what the Vikings have done under Coach Zimmer. Playoffs one year, no playoffs the next year. Playoffs 1 year, playoff. And they've got the biggest criticism I have about the entire organization from last year, I feel like they did a poor job of understanding what the expectations should have been and getting people to realize that a playoff berth shouldn't have been expected. An NFC championship berth shouldn't have been expected. 13-3 isn't going to happen. Super Bowl isn't going to happen. I think everybody was caught up.
Playoff berth should have been expected.
But everybody was caught up in this idea that, hey, this is simple, right? We made it to the Final Four with Case Keenum. We plug in Kirk Cousins, and everything's fine. And next time we go to the Super Bowl and we win it. And they should have made sure people weren't expecting that because it feels like more of a failure.
The best. Good to see you.
Later.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. Mike Zimmer joins us next.